Extinction is a natural process that has been happening since life began on Earth. However, lately it seems like species are disappearing at an alarming rate, and there's not much we can do to stop it. In fact, according to National Geographic, every year, around 10,000 animal species go extinct. But because they are so tiny or obscure, we don't even notice it. What's sad is that most of these animals don't even get a proper investigation, meaning that by the time scientists realize there's a problem, it's often too late to save them. But today we're going to talk about some more well-known animals that we unfortunately lost in recent history. So grab some tissues, and let's take a look at 8 animals that recently went extinct. Number 8. The golden toad. This little guy was one of the most colorful toads that ever existed and was also very unique in its behavior and life cycle. They lived in the humid forests of Costa Rica and were known for being diurnal, which means they were active during the day. Unlike other toads who come out only at night, the golden toad would spend their days hunting for food and their nights sleeping with their mates. However, sadly, in 1989, the golden toad was declared extinct due to climate change. Because they were only found in one area, they never migrated. And when the weather started to change, they had no place else to go. This particular toad was special because it was the first amphibian in the world to be driven to extinction by climate change. It was also the first species to be lost from the Monteverde Cloud Forest Reserve, which is one of Costa Rica's most famous national parks. The Caribbean monk seal. When you think of seals, you probably imagine whiskered animals lounging on a rock or swimming through icy waters. But the Caribbean monk seal looked completely different than any other seal that we know of. They had a dark gray body with long flippers and no visible whiskers. And even though they shared a name with their Caribbean cousins, they actually belonged to the family Adobonidae, which includes. But despite their strange appearance, in 1998, this subspecies of walrus was declared extinct after centuries of Their numbers declined drastically when people started hunting them for their fur, meat, and oil. And eventually, the last known live sighting of one of these seals was in 1958. But believe it or not, we may have seen one of these guys just a few years ago in 2004 when a skeleton washed up on the coast of Louisiana. Unfortunately, by the time experts got to examine the bones, it was too late. They confirmed that it was indeed a Caribbean monk seal, but it had been dead for quite a while. Nowadays, the only way we can learn more about these mysterious creatures is by studying preserved specimens and fossils. Number 6. The ivory-billed woodpecker. For years, the ivory-billed woodpecker was thought to be extinct. That was until 2004 when it was rediscovered in the swamps of eastern Arkansas. The bird was so elusive that it took almost 150 years for scientists to find it again. They are one of the largest woodpeckers in the world, standing around 20 inches tall and weighing 16 ounces. So it's easy to understand why they were thought to be extinct. After they were rediscovered, conservationists were able to track down 4 more sightings before they disappeared again in 2007. One of the biggest problems with trying to study these birds was that they sounded very similar to the pileated woodpecker. But by comparing recordings from the ivory-billed woodpecker in the 1930s with the ones in 2004, scientists realized that they could tell them apart. But as of today, we still haven't seen one of these guys, meaning that we do unreally know if they truly extinct or if they just hiding from us. Number 5. The Christmas Island white-throated monitor. This lizard is named after the island where it was discovered in 1901, Christmas Island, which is located off the west coast of Australia. When the locals first found this monitor, they thought it was a type of python because of its slim build and long tail. But as soon as scientists got a hold of it, they realized it was actually a lizard. Unfortunately, by the time they made this discovery, there were already less than 2,000 of these monitors left on the island. This was mainly due to the fact that invasive species like cats and donkeys were hunting them and stealing their eggs. And even though conservation efforts were made, they weren't enough. In 1989, it was officially declared extinct, but not before being captured in one last photo. Number 4. The Pinta Island giant tortoise. On the Galapagos Islands, there was once a giant tortoise species that grew to be enormous sizes, up to 5 feet long and 550 pounds heavy. And, fun fact, they were actually related to the famous Galapagos tortoises. These tortoises used to roam around the island of Pinta until humans came along and destroyed their habitat. Over the years, the tortoise population declined greatly. But amazingly, one of these guys managed to live up to 100 years old. His name was Lonesome George, and he spent his days looking for a mate so he could save his species. But unfortunately, he passed away in 2012 without finding a partner. He is now the last known member of his lineage, which is why he's considered an iconic symbol of extinction. 3. The Wake Island rail. This flightless bird was found on a coral atoll called Wake Island, which is located in the Indian Ocean. And just like the other animals on this list, the Wake Island rail was hunted to extinction by non-native species like cats. But unlike the other animals on this list, this bird was only declared extinct in 2021, making it one of the most recent animals to go extinct. Before being declared extinct, it was listed as critically endangered for more than 50 years, meaning that everyone knew it was on the brink of extinction, but somehow we still weren't able to save it. Its ancestors were white-throated rails that flew over from Australia, where they still live today, and evolved into this flightless subspecies after arriving. And even though it may seem hard to believe, scientists were aware of this bird's existence in the early 19th century, but it wasn't until 1914 that it was collected for the first time. Its remains can be found in the Natural History Museum in London. No? 2. The St. Helena olive white. The St. Helena olive white was a small songbird that lived on the remote island of St. Helena in the Atlantic Ocean. It belonged to the same family as the Hawaiian honeycreepers. It was actually a descendant of white-eyes that flew over from Madagascar. But even though it may have been related to other types of white-eyes, it looked completely different and was perfectly adapted to its environment. Unfortunately, this guy was also hunted to extinction by invasive species like cats and rats. But the main reason it went extinct was because of habitat loss. The trees that this bird relied on for food and shelter were cut down by humans for timber, palm oil, and agriculture. And by 1964, it was declared extinct. Number 1. The Tasmanian tiger. The Tasmanian tiger was a medium-sized carnivorous marsupial that looked very similar to a wolf. It was covered in orange-brown fur and black stripes, which is what earned it the nickname Tasmanian tiger. Even though they shared a name with modern tigers, they didn't belong to the Felidae family, but instead to the family of wolves. However, that didn't stop them from being great hunters. In fact, they were known for having very powerful jaws and sharp teeth, which they used to hunt for prey like kangaroos, wallabies, and possums. Sadly, in 1936, the last known Tasmanian tiger died in captivity, making it one of the most well-known animals to go extinct. It died at the age of 2 to 4 years old and was given the name Kangaroo Island. Today, we can learn all about this fascinating creature by visiting the Australian Age of Mammals exhibit at the National Museum of Victoria. Well, that's it for today. But if you want to learn more about animals that went extinct, make sure to check out another video.